it's Thomas here, and I'm sure you've noticed by now that most of the aquariums that we keep in this hobby are tropical, meaning they have warm water and we got to keep it warm somehow and keep that temperature stable. And what we usually do that with is not a candle or a Bunsen burner, but rather an aquarium heater. Now there are lots of options for aquarium heaters, and you got to know what size you need for your tank, and you might not have that information. You might not even know where to start. And that's where I come in. I'm going to show you how to pick your first aquarium heater. There are lots of options for heaters out there, but choosing a heater is actually pretty simple once you know what you're looking for. So to start off, you need to make sure you're getting a heater that is rated, usually in watts, for the size of aquarium that you've got so that it heats efficiently. Although the wattages on this chart may fluctuate a little bit depending on how many degrees you actually have to bring the tank temperature up from room temperature, they're generally quite accurate. For tanks between 5 to 10 gallons, a 50-watt heater is usually great. For 15 to 20 gallons, you're looking at 100 watts. 25 to 40 gallons, 150. 50 to 60 gallons, 200. And if you're going from 75 to 100 gallons, 250 to 300 watts. For tanks larger than 100 gallons, you're going to want multiple heaters spaced evenly inside of the aquarium to keep the temperature stable and to bring it up to where it needs to be efficiently. Keep in mind, some manufacturers may have different size recommendations on the box of their heater, and that can simply come down to the efficiency of that particular heater. There are basically two types of heaters. You've either got in-tank heaters or in-line heaters. Now, an in-tank heater is probably exactly what you picture in your mind's eye when you think of an aquarium heater, a long slender tube with a dial on top that you can adjust to set the temperature. An in-line heater is a little bit different. It actually sits outside of the aquarium and can actually run in line with a filter like a canister filter or just with a pump and tubing. You may be asking yourself, why would you want an in-line heater versus an in-tank heater? And there's really two reasons. Number one, an inline heater won't be seen inside the aquarium, so your decor won't be encumbered by a tube sticking on the back pane of glass, or you won't try to have to hide it with ornaments or plants or anything like that because it won't be there. You won't have to look at it. So that's one benefit, and that's one reason I really like them. The second benefit is that because of the fact that water is always passing by the heating element, the entire volume of water in the aquarium has to come together up to temperature all at once. It can't kind of, which can happen in a longer standard aquarium with a regular in-tank heater. If you stick it on one side of the tank is going to get warmer before the other side is going to get warmer. So the heater might actually shut off before the other side of the tank has come to temperature, meaning you may have a degree or two difference between one end of the tank and the other. That can be combated though by putting the intake of your filter or output of your filter right next to the heater so that water is being drawn by or pushed by the heater at all times. But ultimately though, that inline heater does a really good job. Now, I often use both types of heaters, but where I can use an inline heater, I almost always do, just because I'm all about that inner slickness in my aquarium. Now let's talk thermostats, because heaters can come with different types of thermostats, so knowing about them is going to help you make your choice. Now the simplest of heaters, usually pad heaters, bowl heaters, or just very small heaters, will have either no thermostat at all or a preset thermostat that's fixed to a temperature that is typical for tropical fish. These heaters are typically small and unimposing and work well for very small tanks. They can, however, take longer to bring water up to temperature and may have a harder time keeping temperatures stable for tanks in drafty areas. They are the simplest heaters to use though. You just drop them in and plug them in, and there you go. The next step up is a mechanical or bimetal thermostat. This is the industry standard and essentially gives you the option of controlling the temperature of your aquarium to exactly where you want it for your fish. They basically work by a small piece of metal inside of the thermostat flexing as the metal heats up or cools down, which then turns the heater itself on or off. And they're actually pretty accurate, able to keep temperatures in the aquarium stable within, give or take 1 degree. So that's actually a great variance, not a lot of swing there at all, and ultimately are going to do a great job. You can select the temperature you want using a knob or dial, and the heater's thermostat will work to keep the temperature as close to your set point as possible by turning the heater on and off as necessary. It's simple and effective, and it gives you the control that you can dial in the heater to the exact temperature that's best for your fish. Next up, we've got digital heaters, which are excellent as well. They are quite accurate, and in fact, some models like the Cobalt Neotherm heaters are so accurate, they can keep the temperature stable with less swing than 1 degree. Less than. That's pretty tight. Less than a degree? That's like, it's barely moving. And you can usually adjust these heaters with buttons or switches, although you do see knobs from time to time. Models like the Eco Plus titanium heater will have the thermostat on the outside of the aquarium rather than built into the heating element, allowing you to make quick changes on the fly without getting your hands wet. Some digital heaters will also show the temp on the aquarium along with what you have the heater set to, acting as a secondary thermometer. These heaters are generally a bit more expensive, but can be worth the investment. So how do you know which one of those thermostats is right for you? Well, really it comes down to personal preference, but if you have a really small tank, then a pad heater or simple heater like that might be great. Otherwise, if you've got a larger aquarium or you want to keep your temperature super stable, a good digital or bimetal thermostat's probably what you're looking for. I'm going to say if I can go digital, which is a little bit more expensive, I usually do. If my budget doesn't allow for it, I will always go with a good bimetal thermostat like the Eheim Jaeger heaters. So let's talk now about heater materials. Heaters are most commonly made out of glass, and glass is fragile and can break, so you got to be a little bit mindful when you're handling your heater. But other than that, they're great. They're the most common type of heater out there, and unless you're, really not paying attention or doing water changes without unplugging your heater, they shouldn't break. There's no reason that they should. However, if you are going to keep fish in your aquarium that are more boisterous, or things like turtles that can smack into the heater and cause it to smack against the glass of the aquarium or something like that, you run the risk of damaging the heater a lot more than you would in a regular setup with small fish that aren't going to do that. And in those cases, you want a heater that's going to be impact resistant, and there's a few different types of materials out there that are impact resistant. First, you have impact-resistant glass. It's going to look just like regular heater glass, but you'll see on the box that it is impact-resistant, and it's just going to be a little bit harder to break than a regular heater. Next up, there are polymer heaters or resin heaters. They're basically a black plastic-looking heater. The element is inside of that, and they are nearly impossible to destroy via impact. You can take a hammer to most of them, and nothing's really going to happen. You may hurt the internals, but the outside of the heater is just not going to break. And lastly, you've got heaters that are regular glass but are protected by a casing on the outside. It's usually a vented plastic, and that's just there to make sure that if you have any smashy fish or you're an accident-prone aquarist, that your heater is protected from said accidents. Now, I typically use glass heaters, but if I'm going to be keeping inhabitants that are more likely to destroy the heater in the tank, I'll definitely go for something impact resistant. I will say that a lot of aquarists out there will just start off with an impact resistant heater so that the idea of breaking their heater is far, far from their minds and they just simply don't have to worry about it. And there you have it. Now that you know how to size a heater appropriately for your tank, you also know what thermostats are available for heaters, and finally what materials heaters come in. You can effectively choose for yourself what heater is going to work best for your setup. But if you have any questions, because there may be some, feel free to drop those down in the comments section. We'd love to get back to you. You can also reach out to us on social media like Facebook, and you might want to subscribe, because we got all kinds of great content for new aquarists and seasoned aquarists alike. Lots of cool builds coming up, and ultimately just fun. Lots of fun. So keep on tanking with us here, and let's have a great time. Fun time with heat for tropical fish, or no heat for non-tropical fish, or heat for tropical fish. Let's talk about heater materials. Most heaters are made of glass. Hey, it's Thomas. Ah, stop it! That was a close call. And not an outtake, Brian. This thing is just so close and you can't even see it, so I just look crazy. The air here is a different temperature and it's killing me. I don't like the temperature right here.